At this time, I'd like to start from vision to visibility, branding and marketing that works. I'm Rochelle Mendoza. I'm going to be your moderator today. And our first person is Saedene Ota. She is the owner and founder of Say Designs. She's the creative director also of the company. It's a Maui-based firm specializing in brand strategy and visual design. She's received numerous honors, including the SBA Women in Business Championship Award, the American Advertising Federation District Silver Medal, and multiple Pele Awards. Saedene serves on several boards, including Central Pacific Financial Corporation, the Maui Board of Economic Development, and the Hawaii Public School Foundation. She lives here in Wailuku, and her husband Ken, with their 2 children. Say. Our next person is Melissa Padilla, creative professional, MP Creative and Company. Melissa has spent over 20 years immersed in storytelling, brand building, and marketing, creating a powerful network of narrative that resonates across various industries. Her career spans from New York to Hawaii, where she has crafted and elevated brands with authenticity, culture depth, and strong sense of place. Through innovative content creation and strategic vision, she has helped companies and communities alike find their voice and build lasting connections. And last, we have Dave Spohn, Director of Sales for Pacific Media Group. Dave is the Director of Sales at Pacific Media Group, where he leads radio sales initiatives across broadcast and digital platforms. With 16 years in experience in sales, finance, and operations at companies including Cox Media and Mitchell International. He specializes in building strong client partnerships and driving innovative marketing and strategies. Dave is passionate about leveraging data and collaborating to deliver measurable results and help brand grow. Let's give a round of applause for all our wonderful panelists. Okay, so I get to do 2 things today, Miss MC and Miss Moderator. So I have some questions here, and I'm going to have each person answer the question according to their specific business development. The first question is brand foundation. You know, we talked a lot about brand here in this boot camp, and it is very essential that each and every one of you understands who your brand is. And you know what? If you can, go to somebody that knows you and ask them, what do you think your brand is? If the answer is correct, you got it. If it's not, you need to work on it, okay? So do that own test for yourself to see if your brand is actually resonating in people's thoughts. What are the key elements every business, new or established, needs to define before launching their marketing or social media presence? I'm going to give you a couple minutes each.
I can start. So yeah, I'm Saedene from Say Design Group. We focus on visual identities and design, which is formulated from brand strategy. And about 10 years ago, we started to really focus in on the front end, which was understanding our clients' intent, their business, and knowing who they really are deep down inside in order to design. So when it comes to fundamentals of branding, we look at their positioning, their character, and their intent. So when it comes to positioning, you've all talked about it. It's not only the target market, but who you're speaking to. What are the personas of that person that loves that honey? Is it an elder woman that lives up country? Is it a traveling tourist? So who are they specifically? Also knowing what your key differentiators are. It's really hard to innovate and come up with something completely unique that no one else is doing. So how do you differentiate yourself from the next person if you have the same product? So that's really important as well too. Your value proposition, at the end of the day, what are you doing for your customer? What service or good are you providing for your customer? Just because you build it, they will not come, right? So you need to give them a purpose and a reason. So that's your positioning. When it comes to character, that's your voice, your personality, your hype. Basically, are you conservative and reserved, or artistic and trendy? What's that vibe? Lastly is intent. At the end of the day, what's your promise to your customer? Or what's your promise to the community at the end of the day? And that's your intent and how you go about doing it. A lot of people may say, okay, I just want to make good cookies. But no, maybe it's not just making good cookies, it's making good cookies that your grandmother made and carrying on a tradition. So that's the kind of information a designer like me needs in order to create an authentic and very strong brand presence, visual brand presence. So.
I do most of the back end, so I do a lot of the storytelling and the narrative and the optics of what your brand is. So I always start with the mission, similar to say, the mission of your company, like what are your goals, what are your intent, how are you putting yourself out into the community, how do you want people to look at you, also what's your vision. So I go mission, vision, and then I usually really wrap in your sense of place. Where are you? Are you the state of Hawaii? Are you Maui County? Are you Southern California? Where are your sort of connectors trying to go to? And then from there, we usually work with folks like Say to build the visuals.
Very well said. So I would say Saedene and Melissa hit it on the head as far as crafting that message and understanding what it's going to be and who you are to your potential clients, right? The thing I always stress with folks that I work with is consistency. You have to tell that message over and over again. You have to tell them what you're going to do. You have to deliver on it. Tell them what you did, to hit the messaging. Because it really takes several times, and it can be 5, 10 times before somebody really understands what your business is and what you do, if they haven't had a chance to experience it. So my job is kind of, after all of that work is done, is to amplify that message to the right audience to get them to do something, right? To get, pull out their phone and look up your website, to buy something online, to look up where you are, to get in the car, to drive down there and actually physically do something. So what we try to do is take that messaging and create that call to action and the urgency behind it. This is, okay, I know what it is, I'm excited about it, now why would I get up and go do something? And that's really what we try to do when I try to work with clients to say, okay, how do we get your message to the right people at the right time? And what we'll talk about with branding, really, it's, you want everybody to know who you are, but really know who you are before you're needed, right? Who do you go to? Who makes the best cookies that taste like grandma? So when I want that, I know where to go and get it. So it's an interesting dynamic because we kind of work at all different points of it. But really what I try to do is optimize that for companies to say, okay, how do we get the message to the right people at the right time in the most cost-effective way so that it can actually drive results for their business?
Those are all good points. Our next question is stand out. Standing out. How can small businesses differentiate themselves in a crowded market without big budgets?
I think the strongest attribute, especially with being from Hawaii, is that collaborations. So if you don't have a large marketing budget and if you don't have a lot of bandwidth to put behind your business plan, marketing plan, find like-minded companies that are willing and will collaborate with you. That's one thing that I feel like the state of Hawaii does really, really well, is that we all seem to come together and have a synergy and have like branding collaborations. And that's going to help you build equity in your company, and it's also going to help you get maybe into different environments that you necessarily didn't think of, but this other company has the ability to go into.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. So I think you really have to be different, right? You can't just be like the competition or a slightly better version of it. You have to have something that's super unique and that people know about, right? Why would I go to this particular company? Why would I use your product? And I think, in marketing, you've seen a lot of gimmicky things recently over the last couple of years where people just do really weird creative, or like, oh my God, it's like a Super Bowl ad that you can't forget, but you're like, what the heck was the product? I think that's where a lot of people have gravitated towards, but it really comes off as kind of, cheap and not authentic. But when you come through and really have a message that says, here's why we're different, here's what we do, and we believe in it, then that translates through, any media that you might use or any messaging, and it really helps stand out from another company that's doing something very similar.
Yeah, to tag on to that, authenticity, I believe is, key to your brand. And like David said, on social media, and everyone does kind of like the same kind of trendy post or videos, and they're fun. But if you're gonna do it your way. Like do a spin on it, or make it, unique to your product or your service. Then you can stay relevant, but stay true to yourself. There are many ways that you can market yourself that it's much more affordable. It's guerrilla marketing, more grassroots, but it does take a lot more time, obviously, on yourself and for you to get out there. But if you can't afford a lot of advertising or radio, because radio is not that expensive, but it's a really, really great
It's
media.
not that expensive.
It's not expensive. Actually, to me, I refer my clients to do radio over print all the time. So then, you have to get creative yourself, but when you do it, just be authentic and true to yourself.
That's good. So our next question is consistency and growth. What are the most effective ways to maintain brand consistently while adapting to trends and changes in the market?
Yeah, so I'll jump on that one. Consistency is key with any branding or marketing you're gonna do, right? That's the biggest thing that can kill a brand, is when you have different messaging out there. And I'll kind of sit on a soapbox for a little bit, because I see this quite a bit with clients that we have that, one advertising, all of a sudden there's one promotion or there's one brand kind of identity, and then they switch it and go to something else. And what they've done is they just ruined all the equity that they've built kind of with the previous, advertising they've done, which unfortunately is like throwing the money away and starting over again. So consistency. You can change the message, but it still has to be in the heart and the feel and the understanding of your brand and what you're trying to do. I think you can change tactics with that same messaging, right? And hit those people where they are. I think the biggest thing when you are building a branding campaign is having an idea of the strategy today, tomorrow, and then in the future, right? So have a plan for growth. Everybody starting a business, wants to build that business over time. Great example with David and Ululani's, right? How they started small, they did everything themselves. Then they started figuring out the things, okay, I should pay for this, I'm gonna get, partner with somebody else and grow along the way. Your marketing campaign should be the same way, right? Today, I'm gonna do these things that I can control, which tends to be a lot of social media, right? You can create the organic content, you can do it in-house, but then how do you amplify that, right? What's the next step to take that brand content and then get it out to other places that aren't just people who follow you or they're friends of people who follow you, on Facebook or Instagram, but really you get out to a whole new audience, and that's where the growth comes from, right? You're gonna build a loyal following, grow from there, and then all of a sudden, what does that look like when, you're a very successful company and you have a, huge marketing budget to go and spend? What does that look like? Because when you think about it in those three phases, it ends up being consistent and authentic across the way. So when you go through the process and you grow, it all works together.
Yeah, I would say, whether you're thinking about starting a new business or you already have a small business, is to make sure that your product or service is locked in and that it's strong and it has relevance before you think about growing. I'd like to say like one of the most unassuming brands on Maui that is okay with not a lot of growth, but they're consistent, is guri. I mean, everyone knows guri, everyone loves guri. They only have 2 flavors and that's all they do. And if anything, they stopped making beans a long time ago, but some people still ask about it. But to me, they probably have one of the strongest brands out there, not because of fancy graphics and not because of even what we do, marketing. It's mostly because their product is solid and people love it and trust it, and it's family oriented. And over time, they've had to modernize. They do social media, I know that, but they kind of really stayed true to their values. So just make sure that, don't panic and go all over the place because you think that you need to grow super fast, but, just focus on doing something really well before you even think about expanding.
I think I just reiterate what both of they have mentioned. Also, you have to have a strong marketing plan that is between, I would say, up to a 3-year marketing plan when you're starting, and it should be reflective of your business plan as well. So everything should move parallel. So when you're building your business plan and you're building your marketing plan, it should continue to move very similar to each other. You don't want to have these large ebbs and flows. It has to be consistent, and it has to be according to what the market is right now. I know that staying authentic, staying true to who you are is the most important, because we all know that we've seen brands where you're, like you had mentioned, that you're just kind of like, what are they doing? Why are they, so I would just say staying authentic to who you are and just have a very, very solid marketing plan.
Okay. Now we're going to head to mistakes to avoid. What are common pitfalls do you see businesses make in branding or social media, and how can they be avoided? This is a really good one.
For me, it's just trying to keep up with the trends and trying to take your brand in a direction that might not have integrity to what your brand actually is. And so while it's really cool to scroll through Instagram and see all these really innovative and creative ways of marketing, it's probably not appropriate to your brand. And there's different ways that you can pivot from what they're doing. I would just say that is like the biggest pitfall when you're looking at a social media account and you're seeing something pop up and you're like, just what is that? And it just kind of makes you not have that sort of, I always say to my clients, when you're doing social media, think about the person on the other end. Like, what is their reaction going to be to what you're putting out there? How are they going to respond? And what deliverables and activations do you want them to feel? And if that's not true to your brand or true to your marketing or your agenda for that month, I also would just recommend that when you're doing social, put it together in a grid, see what it looks like and see how it flows. A grid is considered 9 pictures or 9 it's what people see when they look at your social media right off the bat if they go to your page. Just have consistency. Don't think that you have to do every TikTok video or social media reel. You don't have to do that.
I'll jump on this one. I think it's treating marketing like an investment, like you're investing in your business, right? Any dollars you put towards it, you have to evaluate the same thing if you were buying a piece of machinery or, getting a lease for a location or spending extra money on a food, truck or trailer, whatever that is. I think you have to look at that investment the same way and really evaluate. I'm spending X number of dollars. Here's what I expect to get out of it, and then how am I going to measure that at the end to say whether it's a success or not? And I have a finance background, so that's kind of what I've done throughout my career, but those numbers really make a difference because those are going to tell you objectively, did it work, did it not work? And one of the big pitfalls I see is people not figuring out what their objective is going into a campaign, right? If your objective is bottom line sales at the end of the day, don't do a branding campaign. Great, everybody knows about you, but they're not going to come buy your product, right? You have to use tactics that fit in the funnel of that marketing funnel. And branding, is gonna be at the very top. You're just telling people who you are and what you do. As you move down the funnel and you're using different tactics, whether it's digital display or email marketing or social, you're getting closer and closer to that conversion point, and then you really can measure what the the sales, the output's gonna be. I mean, sales at the end of the day, that ROI is gonna justify the investment just like it would be anything else. But taking that same perspective really helps evaluate what you're doing and why you're doing it at a specific time. And I think that's the biggest mistake I've seen with folks is like, oh my God, we're gonna drive all these sales, and all they did was branding at the end of the day. And he said, well, that's great. If you did a brand survey, your brand recognition would go up, people know who you are. You have to wait for them to be then in the market for your product or service before it's gonna translate to a sale, whereas those other tactics are gonna get you closer to that conversion.
As a business, as you start to grow, which is a good thing, a sign that people are liking your product or service. So what I've seen a lot of young businesses do is they continue as they're growing to think that they need to do everything. And you're just trying to like make that cookie awesome, but then you also gotta like do your marketing, and you have to do HR, and then you have your family coming in and help you too. So at some point, you're gonna have to think about your finances and invest the money in other aspects so that you can focus on that cookie. So whether it be hiring someone like Melissa to help with marketing or social, or doing a little bit of radio, so that you're not all over the place. I mean, in the beginning, you have to do everything, but at some point, you're gonna have to lean in on others to help you grow your business. So, and it's a hard thing to do because it's like money that's been taken away from your sales, but think of it as, again, like an investment.
One of the things that I really admire is that we've been talking about branding versus sales. How many of you here know the difference between branding and sales marketing? I got one hand up. So there is a big difference in that, and that's when you need a professional. Can you talk to us a little bit about the difference between branding marketing and sales marketing?
Sure, I can start. I mean, I'm sure we have all our takes on it, but branding is what people believe in. It's what they aspire to be. It's the gut reaction to a product or service. When it comes to marketing, it's how you get that out to market. It's how you get that out to people to sell it. So it's very, very different. They work together, but branding is the why and marketing is the how. So that's kind of a simple way of looking at it. And then there's visual identity, like your logo, your packaging and all of that. That's part of your branding too, but those are more tactile, those are more representative of your brand. Brand is somewhat esoteric in a sense. So like when you go to Starbucks, there's a sense of comfort. You know that your coffee's gonna come out the same way. You know that you can order that matcha with that extra added espresso shot because you've done it before. And you know that you can do that here in Seattle and Japan and get that same special order.
Right.
So that's branding.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think branding is the feeling, right? It's the feeling when you hear the name of the company, you see the logo. What do you feel when you see it? I mean, Coca-Cola is the best example of this because they're huge, they're number one, but they keep branding and branding, right? So when you think of Coke, you might think of the commercial with the polar bears or the name on the individual Cokes or whatever it could be. But it's that feeling behind it. It's not really tangible. It's just kind of what you feel at that moment in time. And then the sales part of it is the action, right? Okay, now I'm gonna go take action because I want a Coke, or now I wanna go take actions because I'm gonna use this company. And it takes you the consumer has to do something at that point. So really it's that activation, and that's the difference I see between them, right? Branding is the feeling, sales is the action, and you really have to link those two together because you need the feeling for somebody to take action when they need that product.
Okay, how many of you have businesses here in Maui? Just how many of you have businesses that are outside of the island? A couple of you? So I have a Maui question. What would you tell people is the best way to start your branding campaign and going into your marketing campaign using tactics specifically for Maui?
I think for me, it's your sense of place, knowing where you're coming from and knowing where you want to go. So if you're doing a campaign that is Hawaii focused and Maui focused, you need to understand what your cultural appropriations are. So what words to use, what words not to use in your marketing campaign. Also, what sort of storytelling that you would like to come across. Is it an island feeling? Is it a cultural? Is it a just whatever your product is, how are you going to deliver it and how are you going to be authentic about delivering it? The beauty about Hawaii is that we have all these, great locations to do marketing photos, imagery, visuals, storytelling. We basically have the backdrop to create the branding for you to be able to produce or get the product out there. However, you just have to be conscious of how you're delivering it and what wording you're using. I always recommend that if you're going to go down a cultural avenue to speak with somebody that is within that world, whether that is a hula kumu or a teacher at a school, someone that can give you a little bit more guidance and direction. I think.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think it's your audience, right? Your target audience that you're going after. I mean, if it's visitors, you probably can get away with more generic kind of marketing that would work on the mainland. If it truly is folks, that live here, native to Maui, you want to make sure you connect to them on that cultural level, like Melissa was talking about. You have to be authentic. I think that's the number one thing with a brand is if you try a general marketing technique or a tactic that's not authentic, that maybe has kind of just a whitewash voice and it doesn't really resonate, it's going to glaze over and people are going to be like, what is this brand? What are they trying to do? Right? But if you can connect locally with the community, really show that you're invested and you're part of it and that connection, then that resonates, right? That creates that feeling of branding of like, okay, there's a sense of place, this is where the company is, this is what they're trying to do, and then I'm gonna listen to the message. Because if you don't do that right from the get-go, people don't listen to the message. And then it doesn't matter how much money you spend in marketing, how great your design or product is, if they stop listening from the first minute they see it, then it's not gonna work.
And whether you're launching a brand or a product on Maui or Oahu, knowing who your audience is so critical. But so for us, when someone comes to us and they have this product and they need packaging for it, an identity system, who's buying it? What's your price point? Where do you plan to sell it? All of that matters in regards to how we create that visual identity. So if you're going after tourists, and you're going in the high-end hotels, that's completely different than selling that product, say at a Long's or Walmart. So knowing where you wanna be within the market with your product is very, very important for your creative team or for yourself when you're designing your visual identity.
Okay, so let's say, I'm going to give you an example. I have a product. I'm selling tickets for an event. The tickets are $50 per person. And I want to build a campaign. What marketing strategy should I use? Let's see. The people are probably in their 50 plus, between 40 to 50 plus, because I want to target the people who have more money. And I want to make sure that I can get about 300 people on the venue. This is just a sample. Those are the kind of questions you want to ask yourself. It's like the who am I targeting, the where's the location? Let's just say it's going to be central here in Kahului. And when, I want to do this in November. What kind of strategy would you give a person for something like an event that they want to do to promote perhaps their product?
Yeah, just a little scenario. Yeah, it's a concert in Kahului for 300 people over the age of 50, and we're building a marketing plan for them.
Yep.
So I'm going straight to Facebook. I'm using Meta. I'm using, sorry guys, that was a little like, I'm going straight to Facebook. I'm going to get, unfortunately, Meta is now your best friend, and you're going to have to build a campaign. Obviously, the visuals have to be very structured, nothing flashy, nothing fancy. You're going to focus on the headliner of the concert. You're going to focus on the location of the concert, and if there's any amenities, because us over 50 like amenities. And so if there's a VIP area or an area where we get to sit where there's no crowds, I'm in. But yeah, I think that if you're building a campaign and it's a targeted demographic and it's like as targeted as what you had just, put on the table, Facebook, Meta. And that's Instagram as well. They're very, they work together. And so, yeah, that's how you're going to get that audience.
I'll throw in a little radio too.
Oh, and radio, sorry.
Radio works, radio and concerts go hand in hand, so I don't know if I need to beat that dead horse, but I think, Facebook, Meta, Instagram is the first place you're gonna go because it's immediate. You can get the information out there. You can do it organically. You can also pay for ads. You can boost those ads. There's a lot of things you can do that's gonna flood people, where they're spending most of their time. Majority of people spend time on Facebook, Instagram, on their phone during the course of the day. Radio's nice because you can add the music to it. You're gonna have DJs talking about it, right? It adds the feel. Radio's always done concerts. I think the one thing you gotta be aware of is just when people are actually gonna take action, buy tickets, and make the decision to go. Maui tends to be very last minute, right? It's the week before, it's 2 days before, it's the day of somebody's making a decision to do something. So if you put together this great plan for 6 months out, or 6 weeks out, and you're advertising, you're branding it, the first 90% of that, nobody's gonna pay attention to. I can guarantee you. They're not gonna care. The message is gonna go. But that's different than branding and selling a product. This is talking about specific event, taking an action by this date and time, which is really where Facebook, radio, email marketing is really good for this one too, either with an in-house list of people that go to that venue and have signed up for a newsletter, or third party where it's okay, this is people who are interested in hearing about concerts and events, and then advertising to them, because you can do that. It's email marketing is like direct mail marketing. You're sending out a message, you're saying do something by a date, some kind of early bird ticket or something like that, some kind of incentive, gets that call to action, but you can track it, right? You can see how many emails went out, how many people clicked on it, how many people went to the website, how many people actually bought tickets from it, to be able to see what that ROI is. So kind of going back to the numbers, right? It's an investment, you're gonna spend the money, track it to make sure we can see what it's doing.
Okay, I'd like to ask a few questions from the audience, or I'm not going to ask, you're going to ask once again. Do we have anyone who would like to ask a question? I was going to give it.
So first of all, thank you. It's been absolutely illuminating. I'm one of the older ones. It's been absolutely illuminating. If in fact my approach were a service rather than a product, and if it were an ongoing coaching kind of service, and if it happened to be for women 40 to 70 who need to build some emotional resistance resilience because they've been in a bad situation and had trouble getting out of it, what do I do? And I bring them to Maui to do the work here and then send them back to the mainland.
Are you targeting the whole mainland or certain parts?
Great question. I send them back to the rest of their lives. I do a little intervention for a week and a half, 2 weeks. We work. We build resistance, emotional strength. We look at the world. They decide where they want to be, how they want it to be, what they're going to create.
What are you doing now?
Coaching.
How are they reaching you now?
By accident. By accident, seriously. I'd like something a little more systematic.
So SEM, search engine marketing, is good for this. You're essentially buying keywords through Google when somebody's searching for that product, right? you know, the plumbers, the HVAC guys, all those spend tons and tons of money there because they want somebody who's in the market and is going to have an immediate need. You're similar to that where you want somebody who needs this counseling and coaching. You buy that keyword, it pops up top in the search, they're clicking on your website, you're driving them, you know, to a form fill or to actually give you a call and, you know, set up an appointment and a time. So that's one of the more immediate ones where you can really work because they don't necessarily need to know who you are, they just need to know what you do.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
just you know, the SEMs are the wording and the verbiage that are within your marketing. So those are the keywords that you need to add. And I'm going to tell you guys, as someone with a communications and a journalism degree, the worst thing is ChatGPT. But if you take your messaging and actually put it into whatever platform you use, whether it's Gemini or ChatGPT, they will give you words that are SEO and SEM appropriate that will be those trigger words that will come up, whether it's on your website. And what you want to do is make sure that your marketing is completely consistent. So your website verbiage is as consistent as your social media verbiage, that's consistent on your email marketing campaign, because all that word, when people search it, the more you have and the more repetition and the more that they're going to find you that way as well.
So basically, a book I wrote a couple of years ago, I would want to have that title in with these words if ChatGPT says there's any consistency to them.
Yeah, and just real quickly, last to add, word of mouth is gold. You know, that's like worth more than all the advertising you're gonna pay. So word of mouth, create a system where your current clients, if they're happy and successful, you know, ask them to refer you and have that information available. Okay. Also, it's a service, so a very beautiful, succinct, simple website will help you as well too. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I saw her go up first.
Hi, yes, I would just like to say as a native Hawaiian and to hear you speak of authenticity, you can't be authentic unless you're Hawaiian. Unless you have the cocoa here, then you're very authentic, you're very Hawaiian. But you can't mimic that. Doesn't matter if you go to a halau and get advice and try to be culturally appropriate, you can't take our culture and you can't brand it. And not just that, it seems like an impossible feat to brand this place and sell it to people when Hawaiians are not treated with the respect that they deserve. And I'm talking about Hawaiians, justice delayed is justice denied, where we do not have housing, we're homeless, we don't fit in this business plan that's here because it's not for us. You know, we can't survive in this business plan. That's how come the prisons are overloaded with Hawaiians. That's how come so many of us are pushed out of here. And we are not colonizers. We're the native people of these lands. And just because we have Kuleana lands from the 1850s where our families bought that, and we don't have to be paying for that, you know? We're kept from those lands. And that's like one of the few ways that we would be able to survive here, because it's the cost of living's through the roof, and we do not have family members in another country to bring here to pay our mortgage. We do not have as much connections as other people that, you know, own so much of the land around the world. But I just feel like you guys talk about branding so much and all those things, but do you think about the native people who live here, who are homeless, living in poverty, statistically very high in being sexually abused, you know, all those things when you're thinking about making money here? You can make money, but don't be so greedy where you're gonna treat us bad, because everything that happens in the dark comes to light. And you know, what would Jesus do? He wouldn't like this. And that's all I'm saying is, you know, sure, you know, make money for yourself, but don't go exploiting Hawaiians to the point where we're being treated so horribly that genocide's occurring, and I think that you can do it. And I'm not saying you particularly, but there's people who feel that we can be covered up, like, or other people could replace us because they look like us, because they're brown skinned, and they can take over our culture and pass as us. But it's just not the right way to do things. And that's just my own feedback I need to give to you. Because I don't see Hawaiians here on this board. I don't see much Hawaiians around here. And I'm wondering, where the heck are the Hawaiians at? You know, but I see a lot of them suffering in the prisons. I see a lot of mothers having to minister to their children in there because that's the only chance they get to see them. You know, they're barely 18, they right into the prison system, you know? And these things need to change. It's way past, you know, it needs to change. But, you know, we tried with Mauna Kea, but maybe there needs to be more. Maybe there needs to be more. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
Do you want a response to that, or? No. Okay.
First of all, I want to tell you mahalo for sharing what you just shared. I honor for you speaking up your piece. You and I have something very similar that we do together, so we can chat later. And I want to thank you for, if she can look at me, I want to thank you for the prompt that you gave them, because it kind of reflected back to what I was thinking, the last prompt you gave them. For you guys, for the panel, I should say, between social media and radio, what do you prefer as far as marketing if you're on a budget?
If you're on a budget?
Yes.
Social media is always going to be, I think, the first place to start, right? You can create organically. There's going to be no cost besides your time to that. And then there is minimal cost if you want to actually promote it and go from there. There is a certain level when you want a bigger message and to reach more people, where radio starts to make sense. And that's, you know, radio, TV, display, print. I'm putting all of that kind of branding type tactics out there that start to make sense as you build that plan. But I think it's kind of building it step by step, and social is the first place to go to. You're going to have the biggest impact right out of the gate and the minimal cost, right? Then once you go from there and you want to get outside of the, you know, the group and the followers that you've made online, that's when you start thinking about radio might be a good place to do it, because people who don't follow you online are then going to hear it, you know, outside, and then will come start following you.
Next question. In regards to social media, I already have a following, and I post a lot. I used to, back in the day, I used to do a lot of ads, and it really worked for me really well. Now when I do ads, my ROI is very minimal. Are ads still worth it on social media?
I'll jump on that again. It is if you're trying to grow, right? I mean, it sounds like you've kind of maximized your audience in that platform, and then it would be time to consider other platforms, right, that can go outside of just the folks that are on social media and looking for your services. Then it might make more sense to change that ROI, because there is a saturation point, right? There's diminishing returns. If you keep having the same message in the same place over and over again, you can put more money towards it, right? But you're not going to get the response. Where your clients, you know, where your potential customers are in a different platform, because it really is a different audience.
Such an awesome job. Thank you. I wanted to thank the panel for taking the time today. I wanted to thank the woman who spoke her truth. I really appreciated to hear that. And I have a question, which is I represent a line of products, healing products, that are, my demographic is kind of everybody. How do you instruct people on how to figure out, like, who's the best demographic for you to market to? Because I've been really struggling with this.
Sorry, what was the product again?
Oh, I represent a line of healing products.
Healing products.
Yeah, they help heal on the.
Does everyone need healing?
Yes, that's why.
Everyone may not think that, though. You know what I mean? There's
Yes.
some that are more vulnerable than others. So you want to make sure that that person, you think about the personas. You probably have a bunch of people that you represented, right, or helped already. So are there some buckets that you can start to put together? Is it a person with this kind of issue, or this kind of issue, or this kind of issue? You may start seeing a pattern of trends, and I'm pretty sure that you may be able to develop like this list of types. And not saying everyone is the same, but you'll start to see some patterns. And with that patterns, you can figure out how to target the ones that are dealing with family, or ones that have, issues at work, or whatever it is. And then you start needling in, you start going in and say, okay, I have a market here. I'm helping a bunch of people that have issues with generational families, their father, mother, whatever, and you lean in on that. So start to look at who you helped already, and don't look at them at age, height. Think about like the issue itself and how you're helping them. Try that.
Wow, that's really great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, I see
Raise your hand.
I just want to thank you all for being here as well. My question was, what are some of your favorite AI prompts for creating a branding or marketing campaign? Or do you have any questions that you ask ChatGPT or Gemini that are helpful?
Yeah, I have a tendency to work in ChatGPT just because over time it understands your voice, which is creepy, but it starts to understand who you are and what verbiage you'll use and how you present yourself, and also it responds to you in a way that you sort of set it up to, and the more you use it, the more it becomes familiar with you as a person. However, whenever I do any sort of storytelling, I have a tendency, just because I like to write, so I will actually write out everything that I am putting towards a marketing campaign or towards a storytelling narrative, and throw it into ChatGPT to make sure that I'm hitting all those words that are going to best serve my client. So if it's, we just did a rebrand together with a brewery, and I did a lot of the narrative for that, and I hand wrote it out just because I want that sort of human touch. I put it into ChatGPT, and it actually generated like really good verbiage that was going to be represented really well on their social media, email campaigns, constant contact, and it just, I'm the human, and that's the whatever that is, and there was not a lot of error on their end, more on my end. So it's helpful in that sense. You always want to read what it spits back out to you, because sometimes it has idiosyncrasies that especially you don't want to have be repetitive. And now I tell this to my kids all the time, that there are programs that you can actually put wording into that will tell you what percentage of it was written by ChatGPT. So I am that person that will take an email and be like, oh my God, they totally didn't write this. But like, it's crazy what you can do and what you can filter and what you can watch. And Gemini is another great one. You can also create visuals in it as well, which is going to be something that, unfortunately, we all love photographers, and I love the authenticity of a photograph, but you could give it prompts the more prompts and direction you give it, the better it's going to respond. So I usually will say, if I want a picture of, a flower, please give me a hand-drawn photo of a flower, of a pu'kinikini that is still on its bud attached to the tree, and it's as if I had an artist sitting next to me drawing. It's the craziest thing.
I'll add to that because I'm not a good writer and actually don't like writing and will sit there and think for 20 minutes before I put anything on paper. The way I use chat is very similar though. It's just almost like word vomit. Like just get everything out, put it out there. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. Chat's gonna make sense of it, or it's, it's gonna tell you like, hey, you're going off the rails here, because it'll read back to you and you'll read it and go, that's not what I meant at all, right? So for me, it's more of just, I use it more for efficiency standpoint. I know kind of the idea, I know some framework, I can throw it in there, and instead of me thinking about it in my head for 30 minutes, chat's gonna do it in 10 seconds, right? And then I can go back and edit chat and say, no, do this, add this, remove this, and tweak it from there. So that's kind of like, it's not necessarily a prompt necessarily, but just the technique of how to use it. And, and keep asking it to rewrite it, do different things, make it longer, make it shorter, take the stupid dashes out, because it put dashes in the middle of sentences. That's like my pet peeve. You can tell if somebody used chat because there's dashes every other sentence. But that's the way I use it, and it's really just to speed the process up.
Hi, I'm in the process of exploring different domains for a website. What are the most used or best recommended by you guys for a domain currently that's user-friendly and is very popular right now and can be shared easily?
Ooh, domain names, fun. Well, obviously, the shorter the better, so it's easy to remember. But if you have a common word that's part of your business name, it's going to be pretty hard to find that URL. So what you could do is a dot something. There are a lot of dots, like dot design, dot bank, dot whatever. There are different services now that you can use to originate a URL. So shorter the better, or you can get descriptive with the dot, or location. That's another way you could add Maui, Wailuku, Hawaii, to have it be more descriptive and unique. But yeah, just be careful. For my clients, I ask them about their URL before their business name, because that's so important in developing their website. So just remember something simple, short, if possible, and consider the dot after as well instead of .com.
This question is from someone who's joining us online, and their question is, what is best for a small startup business for marketing with low funds but wants to build, that's not just Instagram, Facebook, or radio?
I'll jump in there. I would say, digital display marketing is a nice entry point as well. You can get your message out there, a visual to go with it. The nice thing about it is if you set up your Google Analytics and a pixel correctly, you can click on that ad, go directly to the website, and actually track all of that. So it gives you some of that tracking ability at a pretty low price point when you come into it. I've set up a couple of those type of campaigns for a company I was working for, and it was really nice to be able to see, you do a little bit of the front end work, you set it up, but then you can track it and see how it's actually coming in and performing. So you can make tweaks and changes.
Or, another consideration, if they're really small, just going old school. It's like friends, family, emails, attend events, go to fairs, go to craft fairs, or depending on what the product or service that they're doing, but just be present and be there and reach out to the community.
Oh yeah, so the question was, what's kind of the minimum budget to start marketing with? And it depends on the tactic, but I will say you need to be in that $500 range per tactic, right? So whatever you're gonna put your money towards, it needs to be $500 per month. It's kind of arbitrary, but it's really a starting place to make it worthwhile, that you can actually measure those results. We kind of use the laws of three. You need 3 different tactics for a real marketing campaign. Top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. So you're talking like a $1,500 budget if you're doing all paid across the board. Now, obviously, you can use social media and organic to fill in some gaps there. like Saedene was talking about, old school networking and getting out and meeting people and passing out business cards is all part of that as well. So you can kind of substitute it early on, but then when you're doing true paid media, you're looking at that like $500 entry point at each one.
And I will just say that even if you're on social media, a $500, the algorithms will very rarely pick it up. So you want it to be worth, if you're doing a boost or a post or a meta ad, you want to make sure that you're putting a little bit of oomph behind it, just so the sponsorships will, and be very demographically like locked in. And that way, yeah, but if you spend, I've had clients that have been like, here's $250 for a campaign, and it's like, it's not even really worth doing it because it's not going to show up on the algorithms.
Can we give you the microphone because we have a Zoom class and they can't hear you? Thank you.
Okay, so if you are going to start off with just $500 a month, I would think that it's because I'm very targeted. I know exactly who I'm targeting, and I would take all that $500 a month into one place and just start measuring results from there and then see how it grows.
So I would set it up this way. If I had $500 a month, I would do the Instagram, Facebook boosting. I would do the Meta, the back end. If you have to set up a business account for Facebook and you have to set up a Meta account for Facebook. So I would focus on that. You have $500 to boost your post, to be very demographically like honed in. And then what I would do is, if you have a website, I would do something, because what you said about the kind of the 3 touch points, you really, really want that. So people will recognize things after seeing it 3 times. That's sort of like the psychology behind marketing, and that's that's another 4-hour conversation. But like, so it's basically, they're going to see it throughout social media, and then they'll maybe go to your website, and then they'll see it through your website. I would add an activation to your social media so there is an ROI and you can actually measure the success. And then if you have other opportunities to do community, grassroots, guerrilla marketing, that would be the other sort of aspect or avenue to go through. But make sure that when you're doing the social side of things, that it's very focused and very direct, because $500 is, it's a substantial amount of money per month. You want to make sure that there's benefit on the back end.
So would you say that a campaign that small, if we're just targeting just Maui, there's 140,000 people here. Do you think that's pretty substantial to be seen?
Yeah, that's substantial. And then what you're going to get out of that is you're going to actually see when your customers are online, because the data points of Meta are incredible. It's going to tell you how many people in Wailuku, male, female, what time they opened, what time they saw your ad, what time they looked at it, and then it's going to actually give you a flow chart of when the next campaign that you do, when you should actually boost it and post it and have it run.
Does Facebook?
I think one of the best things about this is that you have these 3 amazing professionals who that's all they do is work on making sure that your marketing is done in a correct way. You really don't want to leave it up to yourself. If you have a business and you're investing into yourself, you want the professionals. Why not have a professional do it if you can, if $500 is something that you can afford to do it. I mean, you have your craft, you have the things that you're selling, and you know how to do that. Let them handle the rest, because that will give you more success than if you try to figure it out yourself. It's like starting over in another thing. So I want to, at this time, do we have time for one last question? I believe I have somebody at the very back who has a question, and then we're going to wrap it up. Oh, no, we're good? Okay. So with that being said, I'd like to give them all a round of applause. Thank you very much for doing a great job. We appreciate all that you've done. And I'll let you all introduce yourself.
I'm Dave Spohn with Pacific Media Group.
I'm Melissa Padilla.
I'm Saedene Ota from Saedene Design Group.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Great job.